It is quite possible that we are going to have several cases concerning Albert Omondi Ojwang. In all those cases, I intend to appear in court as amicus curiae. Amicus curiae is a friend of the court. In the Kenyan judicial system, we call it an adversarial type of giving evidence. It is adversarial in the nature that if you have to enter into a case, you have to take sides. You have to decide if you are for the accused or the prosecution. There is no provision for an independent person, a person who can come and say, I'm independent. It is only you come in as amicus curiae. An amicus curiae is a friend of the court. An amicus curiae is an individual with special knowledge in such cases that would assist the court to come to a fair and just decision. The problem with amicus curiae, especially in Kenya, is that you are at the mercy of the court. The court can decide to accept you. The court can decide not to accept you. And its decision is final. There are very many cases here. Let me just mention a few. There is the inquest to find out how he died. There is the murder charge, where one or two people will be charged with murder, with murdering him, and so on and so forth. So you may find even 4 or 5 cases going on simultaneously, unless there is evidence that one or more is interfering with the other, or somebody wants all the cases to be consolidated. Then all the cases can go on simultaneous, independent of each other. In such a situation, a person like I can apply to be a friend of the court. If it is the High Court and they reject my application, I cannot go to the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court. Amicus curiae, it is for the judicial officer to decide whether he or she wants to be assisted. Just like in Parliament, when you go for point of information, the Speaker would ask the member if the member would want to be informed by you. The member may turn out and say, I don't want your information. You will take that one nowhere. That one brings me to the other issue, where I preempt that. You see, I preempt that by saying, coming to you now, the way I'm coming to you, I am preempting, because the information is not even meant for the court, it is meant for the consumption of people. But even if the court allows me to be a friend of the court, especially in a case of inquest, how many reports have been taken to the government after inquest and whatever? Many. How many of them, when the president is receiving them, has said, all the presidents, there are many, 5. Kenyatta is the only one who publicly said he'll not whatever. But let us count Moi, Kibaki, Uhuru, 4 presidents. How many presidents have said, whatever you have given us, we will fulfill in full? What have they done? It would have even been better if they would have said, we will ignore in full. They tell us they will fulfill in full, but they ignore it in full. experiences, both professional and personal. I also have evidence of my sharing my information with various government departments weeks before Ojwang was even arrested. So it is not whatever I'll present, if given an opportunity, are not things that I'm manufacturing or anything. I would produce documentary evidence that I had shared what I am saying here and what I would say there with various government departments weeks before Ojwang was even arrested. My viewer should bear with me that I will not start mentioning the departments. I will not start saying, oh, on such and such a day I went to this and said this. No. I will not start mentioning the departments, but not only will the departments agree that I contacted them, but they have their own references numbers similar to OBs that can act as a reference number. I can always say that when I went to report to this and this office, it was recorded under reference number, this dated of this and whatever. So it is not something that I can only say that the case of Ojwang has just woken up a sleeping giant. While thinking of what materials I would upload on this tape, initially I was of the plan to be a defense witness of the Central Police Station, OCS. But I felt that a higher calling of AMICUS CURIEU is better than being the defense witness for the OCS. Remember, it is 1,000 times easier to appear in court as a defense witness for the OCS Central. He is in a desperate situation. He would really need anybody to assist him come out of his problems. But a higher calling is that I should appear there as an amicus curiae, the friend of court. But as I've said, being a friend of the court can refuse without explanation to anybody. Should the court or courts reject my application of amicus curiae, I intend to use the public court of public opinion, to explain my points. I intend to do that should the courts as we know them, should the courts refuse to give me that hearing. I don't intend to use the OCS to be his defense witness. Of course, it would be good to defend the OCS, but defending Ojwang, who has no voice, and defending all those who have gone through this type of problem is a higher calling. What's more, the OCS, this particular OCS, is just out to save his skin. If he was not a target, he would not offer to give a court of law the information that he is now ready to give. If, he will talk a lot of things, he will do that just because his job is on the line. But if his job was not on the line, would he have offered to freely give the information that he will give in his defense? I doubt so. In special branch, we were taught to note that the informant, in special branch, we were taught to note that the informant who doesn't freely give information, you see, like the OCS will give a lot of information, but it will not be free. It is because of the circumstances and situation that he has found himself. So you have, in special branch, you are taught to take a mental notice of that. Get his information, but behind his back, take note that his is not a freely given information. Information that you give expecting nothing in return, and information that you give without anybody's prompting you, is very important. A reasonable pie of my presentation will bear in mind how today's DCIs are treating today's OCS with a few case studies. I'll try to show how the DCIs are treating with contempt today's OCS, and I'll give a few case studies. I have convinced myself that those knowledgeable in drafting of the law should have a second look at the so-called cyberbullying and misuse of computer. This is a God-sent case. This is a God-sent milking cow, where the DCI has found a very good way to either use it as a milking cow or use it as a tool to torture people. Just like they say in Kiswahili about Musumeno, it has to cut both sides. But using this and other ambiguous laws, the DCI has used it as a milking cow. NIS is 1,000 times wiser than the DCI. Okay, we know that even during Adam and Eve time, DCI always acted upon a complaint. Without a complaint, DCI behaves as if nothing has happened. Another negative thing about DCI is that unlike NIS, which is open-minded, DCI tends to favor the person who has complained. Why can't the DCI turn to the complainant and say that you are misusing us? Or even say that, according to our findings, you are both equally guilty, or you, the complainant, is more guilty than the suspect. They behave like a lawyer. You see, once you have hired a lawyer, he sees only the good things on your side. And when he sees the negative things on your side, he tries to cover them. Why should the DCI act as if they are the counsel for the complainant? I remember Charles Kimani, when he was the officer in charge of Kabras police post many years ago. One time he advised me he told me to advise a complainant to withdraw an assault case, since when Kimani had looked at the file, the complainant had said that he had been assaulted by the suspect. But when Kimani looked at the case, he came to a conclusion that this was a fray, which means fighting in a public place. So he told me to go and advise the complainant that if this case goes to court, they may end up both of them being charged with fighting in public. So he advised me to advise the complainant that he should withdraw the case because it may land both into problems. But today's DCI would close the eyes, when evidence is there that the complainant may even be more guilty than the suspect. And what's more, who would advise the DCI to close a tap that is producing honey? He has a container there drawing honey from the tap, and you tell him to close that tap so that more honey does not go into his container. We have various city OCS who have watched impotently as the DCI make their monkey tricks with impunity. The case of the Central OCS is no exception, but the latest in many cases of similar case. Let me start with Karen Police Station. There is a blogger called Gaido, and there is a senior journalist called Gaido. Because of the confusion of the names, These DCI people pursued the journalist. Lucky enough, or so the journalist thought, Karen police station was near. Karen police station was near. So Gaitho thought that that is the safest place to go. He rushed to Karen police station. At least the DCI would have secured the gate for Gaitho not to leave Karen police station, and they would have gone to OCS Karen to arrest Gaitho. But what did they do? And then Gaitho on his side, he would have reported to the OCS Karen, and after a meeting between the OCS Karen, the DCI people, between the OCS Karen, the DCI people, and Gaitho, it would have come out to have been identified that it was a case of mistaken identity, and it would have been solved amicably. But what happened? What happened was Gaitho was being mugged in the presence of the police, and even people were recording it on TV, and the OCS Karen and his officers did nothing. They just watched impotently. Even if the individual was the right one, supposing that it was the right Gaitho, the blogger, must he have been treated like State Research Bureau of Ida means time? Such instances could raise public attention, and we all know about mob injustice. Or is the director of the DCI liking that? Would he be happy if those people arrest somebody in that manner that they are arresting, and the mob turn against them and kill the detective? Allow me to give personal experiences, and it was not one case, but I'll talk of two cases, two OCSs. I want to talk of the Riruta OCS and Gigiri, two OCSs. Yes, Gigiri, there are two OCSs. One is the diplomatic police station, and the other one is the ordinary police station. During my 42 hours at Gigiri ordinary police station, yes, you had me 42. It is not a typing method error that instead of 24, it was 42. Count Monday at 8 p.m. up to Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. Those are 42 hours. During the 42 hours at Gigiri, instead of 24, and I mean this, just add 6 more hours to my 42 hours, you'll find that if I would have stayed for 6 more hours, I would have spent 48 hours in Gigiri. That would have meant that I would have spent twice the time, the legal time. What has happened? I'm here. Nobody has explained to me why I nearly spent 2 days there. And you see, when I spent almost you add 6 hours, that would be 2 days. Those 2 days, almost 2 days I was there. I got 2 cups of tea. That is, Tuesday morning, I got a cup of tea with 2 slices. And Wednesday morning, I got a cup of tea and 2 slices. In a period when I'm supposed to have had, I did not have lunch on Monday, on Tuesday. I did not have two meals on Tuesday, and I did not have 1 meal on Wednesday. 3 meals were not given to me. But I've explained that. It was for me to be so much hungry and be given food that is less. That one I've already said. So you can see, if today I was to sue anybody for being in Gigiri police cells for 42 hours, whom would I sue? It would be Madam OCS at Gigiri. And that is what is happening in Central. Talam is being crucified for what? Talam is being crucified for what the DCI people did. They are the ones who left Nairobi. They are the ones who went to Talam. Never even passed Uthiru. I think Uthiru is the border of Nairobi and and Kiambu. So you can see how they are conveniently placing Talam there. Let us also remember, I know many of you have forgotten the lady Njeri. She was deliberately placed in cells on a Thursday, knowing that Friday was a public holiday. The intention was for her to be there from Thursday to Monday. The cleverness of the DCI is to place one in a police cell for as long as possible. You have seen the case of Njeri, and drag the case for as long as possible. Remember, if Njeri would have been taken to, if Njeri was taken to court on Monday, if there was no interference, because if she was to take a plea, then the next step would have taken over. After taking plea, she would be taken to remand for 2 weeks. And when the remand, after the remand is over, she is then released under CPC, where they say the prosecution, they enter the nolle prosecute, or if not nolle prosecute, the prosecutor would, under CPC would say he does not intend to continue with the prosecution. That is the back door of taking someone to jail. You now get that. And remember, many such people, many Kenyans, are in informal employment. Supposing Njeri works in a saloon, how many days would, imagine 2 weeks in there, 2.5 weeks. 2 weeks is 14, a half is 4 days. She would have spent more than a half the month in the cells. And she coming out, she would have to pay rent. She would have to food everything. That is how the DCI is now doing its dirty work, using what do you call legal loopholes. Don't even think of once that the nolle prosecute was discovered at the time when the nolle prosecute, it was even intended before somebody is arrested. What Talam is going through is what other OCS do. And you know the cells belong, by law the cells belong to the OCS. The law says even then the Commissioner of Police during those days, and nowadays the DIG, cannot release a prisoner. He writes on the, I have ordered the OCS to release the prisoner. Then the OCS says, the OCS, I'm releasing the prisoner under instructions from the Inspector General or the Deputy Inspector General or the Police Commissioner. And when the suspect enters a police cell, from the moment, like the 42 hours, if I would have eaten that ugali and cabbage, and you see ugali and cabbage, I have screenshots of Vacabra's Welfare Association, where a member of the JI-TENGE family was tipped within an hour that I was given less ugali, to provoke a stroke. It is there. I have a screenshot of that. So you see, if I would have eaten that ugali where the so-called complainant bought the food and left that, and I would have died, Madam OCS Gigiri would be where OCS Talam is. I hope you understand when I talk with a lot of anger. It is human. Actually, my channel is supposed to be educative, but you see, inside my chest, there is a heart, and inside my vein, inside my veins, there is blood. I would say that since Gigiri have occasions where there is a handful of prisoners in cell, you know, Gigiri, I would say that there are occasions when Gigiri has 100 people in the cells, mostly foreigners. I don't know why. You could find foreigners who are Kushaiks. There are just too many with people from grandchildren to grandparents in the same place. So it's a bit of complicated there. I don't know. I didn't have time to know. But there are even occasions when Gigiri has 2 prisoners in cells. You find in such occasions, when the OCS, Madam OCS is doing her round to see, she is supposed to see the prisoners to make sure that they are okay. If a prisoner is having a medical problem or anything, she's supposed to, the OCS is supposed to take action. So when she was going around the cells, I would spend longer time talking to her. And I raised with her various issues. But I could see fear in her eyes as we talked. Because as a former police inspector, as a former senior police officer, I would take time to tell her, Madam, I know what you're going through. Don't you see, if I did this and this, don't you see it is you who would face the music and whatever. I saw there was a fear in her eyes because on one hand, she's talking to an NIS emeritus, and also she's talking to a suspect in a DCI case. In both cases, things were, they really brought a fear of life in herself. Handling either would cause fear in her face. So she was so much fearful of talking to a former NIS officer, not knowing where where she will be quoted. That is one. On the other hand, she was also very fearful of interfering with a DCI case. It will later bring her problems. So handling either would cause fear in her face. What of the particular case that we are talking about is double? I'm talking of supposing Ojwang's case also is similar to that one. So you'll find the OCS is a very fearful person. I talked of, there is a video I've recorded explaining the difference between staffing officer and commanding officer. This is where the work of a staffing officer is good because there's no time you'll be answerable to such things. Yours is only paperwork. There used to be a musical group that was called Necessary Noise. Do you remember that? She treated me, the OCS Gigiri, treated me as necessary noise because she didn't know what to do. She didn't know whether to walk out of me. She didn't know whether to ignore me. She didn't know. So she just played there like a CCTV camera, collecting everything, but not giving back your feeling. Her real feelings would be, she was feeling that if she expressed her real feelings, it would either end up with the DCI or the NIS, of which in both cases she was fearful of. So what was written all over her face was, God assist me to cover my end. And that is why I even don't want to be Talam's defense witness, because Talam is only interested in covering up his skin. His skin, I repeat. My intention was to cross-examine her by asking, what does my right and are they being observed? What are my rights and are they being observed? She would not answer because whatever answer she gave, it would be used against her. So you can put yourself in her shoes. Then there is the question of being removed from cells and returned. Yes, there are very many times I was being removed from the cells and returned. And what was happening was, I've told you that every meal time I was being removed conveniently so as to build a hunger stomach. I nearly said a hunger tumbo. To place a hunger stomach so that when the food that is spiced can be brought, I eat like a hungry what? Have you ever seen hungry pigs eating their food? But I thank God that the complainant had completely forgotten that for over 50 years I do not eat cabbage. Supposing she would have brought nyama choma or anything, I would be where Ojuang is right now. So you can understand my pain. And I'm saying that Alam is right, that these people are removing this, or whoever is saying, there is somebody who was saying that he was being removed and taken to Karura and back and whatever. I was being removed. I can completely say that at 3 a.m., Safaricom can bear with me. I can talk of 3 a.m. on Tuesday. I was in the DCI office. Imagine 3 a.m. People in the cells have their supper at 6 p.m. But I was taken away conveniently at 5:30 p.m., half an hour to mealtime. I stayed under interrogation which had nothing to do with alleged cybercrime. Some of the allegation was, why are you not in good terms with family members? I was even being told that there are 10 members of the family whom I'm not, I didn't even know. I was even asking for those people to be counted. You see, some people are so lazy that they even have time to take a pen and paper and say, he has disagreed with Albert, that is one. He has agreed with Ben, up to reaching 10. But then you can even ask yourself, if the complainant had all that time to count, what effort did she take as a relative to try and reconcile me with other relatives? She only said, amekasirisha watu 10 kwa familia, mimi ndio nitamgomesha. So those are the things I was being asked. Why have you stopped your son from becoming an MCA? Well, I have a ballot. I can write a letter to the IEBC and they can produce the results by the returning officer of that constituency on what my son got. He did not even contest for MCA. But the answer for that is that how can I answer for something that never happened? Because the IBC has proof of my son doing that. So how can you answer an accusation of an offense you are just hearing? We mzee, we ni mbaya sana. Ulikataza mtoto wako kuwa MCA. Okay. That was the first time I was hearing that my son was a candidate for an MC. Or I've never heard that my estranged son even wanted to be an MCA. You know, there is a lot of when the seat is vacant, people can express 30 of them. 30 people can say they want to contest. But by the time people go and give they are cleared by IEBC to appear on the ballot paper, out of 30, maybe 5 can be cleared by the returning officer. So I'm not talking of those people who are cleared by returning officer. I'm talking of anybody who expresses any. You can even ask that boy, which ward were you contesting for and which year? You see, they have been bought by the complainant because she wanted to sell land and share the 30 million with her boyfriend, who is a police driver within Gigiri Police Division. Now they are even coming up with, you can always answer for something that, okay, if I would have stopped my son from becoming an MCA, I would have had a reason. And if I would not even tell them it is not a crime, I would have given them the reason why I don't work. But how can you answer for a crime that you are hearing it for the first time? So that is how I was being kept up to 3 a.m. And I talk of 3 a.m. because of two things. One, at 3 a.m., the investigation officer called the boyfriend. 3 a.m., he called the boyfriend and told him, your statement does not make sense. Can you come up in the morning and make a new statement? Now, if the new statement was made in the morning, it means that it can be backdated, isn't it? But if the Safaricom can produce the phone call that the investigation officer rang that person, and we hear the voices. It says, hii statement yako utakuja urekebishe. Ndio igiane na kesi. And he was saying that not knowing that he was next to the NIS veteran and one of the best NIS Kenya has ever produced. Sorry to blow my own trumpet. Another thing that happened at that time, I had uploaded a video which I talked of him being, you know, this thing about disclosing his name and disclosing his telephone number on YouTube. Gen Z, what they do is that since they have his number and name and whatever, they'll call him and he'll go through hell. When I was being taken back to the cells, I want to tell you, this is 3 a.m. I've been taken out of the cells at 5:30 p.m. I'm going back at 3 p.m. So when Talam says that, or anybody else says that Ojwang was taken out of the prison, of the cells in Central Police Station at night and taken to Karura, I would be the last person to doubt that. Because I was taken out of the cells and midnight found me. You know, at midnight, there is a changeover. I don't know what was written there, because in the OB and the cell sentry, they rewrite the names of all the people who are there. So I don't know how they wrote that for me. And I don't know how they wrote that for Ojwang. Sorry. At times we talk with emotions, which is not supposed to be. My intention was to cross-examine the OCS if my rights were being observed, but she was very careful. She would not answer, because whatever answer she would give, she believed it would be used against her. It may end up in the DCI, or it may end up in the NIS. And you find anybody given an office should not have a fear of the DCI or NIS, should only fear the law. Am I going against the law? If I'm going, that is the only thing. But fearing the DCI and NIS more than the law speaks a lot. Then there is the question of being removed from cells and returned. That one I've answered. Plus the school of thought that perhaps he was brought in a bad state. Yeah, we have a school of thought that he was brought. Okay, it is true. The question now is, at what time was he brought in a bad state? It is possible that he was either brought in a bad state at the beginning, when he came all the way from Nyanza, or even when he came from Karura, or both. Now the question is, in both cases, one thing is common. The common thing is that the report office personnel are opening the cell for someone who is obviously not well. As I said before in another Ojwang tape, the police station can admit the person, write his or her medical condition, and immediately take the suspect to a medical facility. You know, even someone can be brought to cells who is a victim of mob justice, isn't it? Another reason is, if they reject, this may lead to the death of that person, or even worsening the illness. So they accept the person, book the person in, but then write that the person has, just the way they wrote that I was being removed for interrogation by DCI, or even Ojwang, and being said he was going to be interrogated while he ends up in Karura, the same way it can be written in the OB and the cells register that the suspect is being taken to hospital for medication. But my presentation here is one. I want my viewer to understand that the mental situation of an OCS and the report personnel at that time. You know, I'm trying to say that the DCI has put the fear of God in the OCSs and the report office personnel, that they brought in Ojwang, who was obviously dying, but they had no option to do anything. They had no option to do anything because of the fear of the DCI. Maybe we were better off with our Nyayo house, because special branch had Nyayo chamber that we didn't normally, we normally used to take people to our torture chamber. So we never had the regular police or the general duty in a precarious circumstance of handling dying people, as we used to take to Nyayo house. And when we saw him dying, instead of taking long, dying a slow and painful case, we would take him to the top floor. We would ask him to jump the way he jumps into a swimming pool. That is what we used to do. We in the special branch used to write in the OB, pending interview or interrogation by the special branch. No OCS then could question such an entry. And apparently, they say that the more things change, the more things remain the same. Today, whereas we used to say that somebody has been arrested pending interrogation by special branch or pending interview by special branch, today, no OCS will question an ambiguous entry in the OB that is written, processing by DCI. I propose that from now henceforth, the OCS be given power to question anyone, including the forest people, the wildlife people, who bring suspects to the station. We have two scenarios. He was tortured before being brought in, or they removed him and took him to Karura and tortured him and returned him. What I saw happening in Riruta police station is a clear sign of things that DCI has been doing. They took over the OB, even when I begged Madam OCS for my constitutional right of being told why I was in handcuffs. Both the Riruta OCS and her deputy looked on impotently and listened to me with sympathy upon what I was going on through. Remember, I was going on through. Somebody who knows his right. Somebody whom everybody there knew. You know, there are even cases when your rights are trampled about by people who do not know that you used to be a senior police officer. Everybody there knows that, and they do that with impunity. And what does the OCS Riruta, Madam OCS Riruta do? And what does her deputy do? They gave me a sympathetic listening ear. But even after questioning that I've not been told why I've been put under arrest, I was not told. But that is a story of another video, and I've already said that I will not repeat it. God forbid, if I would have eaten that ugali and cabbage, I would be the one lying in city mortuary. And Madam Riruta OCS would be where Talam is. What Talam is going through is what Madam OCS Riruta would have been going through. Whether Ojwang was tortured between Homa Bay and Nairobi, or whether he was removed from cell and taken to Karura, one question remains. What can the OCS do? Let us forget the lessons in Kiganjo. Let us face the reality. In Kiganjo, we were taught that as an OCS, once somebody is in the custody, whatever happens to him or her, you are the last person to be responsible from. You have heard the OCS Riruta and OCS Girigiri give me a sisterly, sympathetic hearing. Both the two ladies sympathized with me, but they did not utter anything. It shows that both the two ladies were fearful. They were fearful of the consequences of quoting what they were taught in Kiganjo. Do you want to tell me that just as we were taught in Kiganjo, if Talam would have stood up on his grounds, would he have dared? You see, everybody, and even when Talam goes to court, he'll be asked, why did you, he'll just say, yeah, this person was brought from, he'll give the, he's the OCS, he'll give the clear picture. This person was either tortured before he reached here, or he will say that the person was tortured while in cells. Now, or he will even say when he came he was tortured, and he was even tortured more, and even when he was being placed back in the cells, he was placed back when he was half dead. That one we'll hear that time. But you'll remember during when I was talking about Bishop Muge's death, that is the first time that I publicly disclosed something about Operation Shika Msumari. Operation Shika Msumari, if you scroll down, you'll find I'll explain everything. But it involves someone, in this case DCI, doing dirty jobs, and the blame is taken elsewhere to somebody else, in this case the OCS. Now, Ojwang is dead. The OCS will be put into the dock. But the DCI people who tortured him between Homa Bay and Central Police Station, plus the people who took him out of cells and tortured him in Karura, will not be in the dock. That is what is called Operation Shika Msumari, where somebody does the killing, but somebody else is blamed for the killing. Okondo lived to regret that. As of now, I am of the belief that this is how it boiled down. I want to give, you know, in Kenya, especially the security personnel have a way of scaring off people saying something. You see, and Mo is the one who introduced that system. He used to say, mtu yote akisema chochote ita ye mwambie andika statement. Now, when you are called to write a statement, in all sincerity, you are supposed to give clearances and whatever. But let me tell you, my friend, even the content of this, they may pretend that, they may even go out publicly and say, JI-TENGE should give himself up and present himself to the nearest police station because he has information about Ojwang's death, which you want to find. So the best way to make everybody be scared and not talk is to have that. And then you are taken to court, you are charged with giving alarming statements which are supposed to cause. That is the trick. But I want to say here and now that what I am saying is what I think may have happened. This is what I think may happen. Ojwang came up with a narration, and as of now, he cannot speak. So, as to correct us if we are wrong. Suppose what I'm saying is not the truth. Ojwang cannot tell me that you are wrong. He cannot tell me you're completely wrong. He cannot tell me you're completely right. Or he cannot say, here you are right, here you are wrong. He cannot speak. My belief is that his intention was to soil Langat with a cooked up narration. I believe that Ojwang had no information at all. He just came up with a calculation, blah, 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 blah. He came up with a fiction story. He talked of Lagat getting millions more than even what the president gets. But then, God, oh God, this was a coincidental, which was purely right. You get my point? Here is somebody who is out to soil the name of Lagat. And he comes up with a story. He's making millions. He's doing this and whatever. Just to soil his name. Unknowingly, Ojwang unknowingly, everything he's saying, I don't know how you'll believe that. Everything he's saying is true. This coincidence leads Langat to believe that someone close to him has leaked the information. You see, Lagat and Lagat are almost the same name. Lagat reads the story. These are not soilers. This boy must have, somebody in this office must have passed this information. So Ojwang arrest is not meant to take him to court. No. Ojwang's arrest is meant to get the information from him as to who in Vigilance House has disclosed about the business. Remember, I'm saying Ojwang doesn't know, he just talked. Kumbe anaongea kitu ambayo inatendeka. So the harassment that Ojwang got and whatever was meant, the harassment was meant for him to disclose the name of the person who works in the DIG's office, who disclosed that. But Ojwang cannot give the name because his was a guesswork. What's more, it's easy to accept. Unajua ukipigwa vile wanapigwa, you can accept that yes, I've been told, but then you are told to disclose the person who said so. Because you'll be beaten to an extent that you'll accept, yes, I have been given the information from your office. You're being beaten and told, tell us who in the office of the DIG has been giving you this information. You say, yes, I've been, so as to stop. Then it comes to, you are now compelled to disclose who in Vigilance House told you about the illegal business. That explains why he was thoroughly beaten. Since it is fiction, which is coincidental, and I say purely that, it means more beating. Because you start guessing names. You guess names so that at least one name rhymes. And that one used to even happen during Moi's time. Someone is tortured and he gives just a random name, which happens to be a name or a nickname of somebody who works in the whatever. So that person is also taken in and tortured because of mere coincidence. So they beat him. Tunajua uliambiwa. Tuambie ni nani aliyekuambia. Then he starts with, oh, it was Albert. They beat him more because there is nobody in that office called Albert. Oh, it was Bernard. They beat him more because there is nobody called Bernard in that office. Oh, it was Charles. David, Edward is beaten more. By the time he reaches Raphael and Stephen, etc., he is unconscious. When he's unconscious, he's rushed back to Central Police Station and thrown there. Can the OCS stop them? No. I've already given several examples where the things have happened in Riruta Police Station, things have happened in Gigiri Police Station, things have happened in Karen Police Station, and the OCS is the biggest spectator. And who are these torturers? These torturers are carefully selected individuals, strictly loyal to Lagat. Strictly loyal to Lagat. They have the false sense of security. Let me tell you one thing. If James Opio, our boss, my boss, even for once thought that the aura of security he had would be removed, the level of torture in Nyayo House would have reduced drastically. But he always believed that Moi would protect him up to the last day of his life. The ball is now in the president's court. Indecision would lead people to saying that nobody would believe that the president has indecision. But people would say that the president is not taking action because both Lagat and Ruto are from Saudi Arabia. Both of them are Arabs. If Lagat resigns immediately, a lot of secrets would go with him. I would rather wish that we have a commission of inquiry so that everything is laid down kiparwanja. Everything is laid down kiparwanja. The finding of the commission is not important because how many times have you had the heads of state of Kenya? Every time a commission of inquiry is instituted and it is given to the president, the first thing he says is, I will follow the recommendation of this commission in full. First of all, let me sidestep a bit. Before the commission hands over its report to the president, usually the commissioners do meet the president in advance with his team of advisors. Or it may not even be the president himself, but there are those legal advisors, competent advisors, who would go through the report page by page, and then they would advise the president. So when you see the president being given the report handed over to him, it is a ceremonial handing over. It is only meant for the cameras and whatever. That is why then the president received the report. He usually says it will be, the recommendations will be, I will enforce the recommendation in full. But let me tell you, all the recommendation up to the time when I'm uploading this video, all commissions that have been done, the president, the president who is on the seat at that time usually promises that. But what does he do? What he does is all the recommendations in this report will be ignored in full. That is what he usually means. Thank you.